Disney live-action movies have kind of been hit or miss. Some are kind of good, some are kind of just a letdown, and overall, some just really don't reinvent anything. But thankfully, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers is a fabulous reboot for this entire franchise, and as someone who absolutely grew up with this show, this is hands down the best Disney live-action remake yet. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're going to be discussing Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, premiering on Disney Plus on May 20th, and this will be a non-spoiler review for all you fans. You guys might have seen the trailer, seen a bunch of the little Easter eggs that they were already popping in there, and let me tell you, there is so much to dive into here, and I'm not going to be diving into it in this video, but I will be doing a top 10 video later this week talking about my top 10 favorite things that I got to see in here, whether it was an Easter egg, a cameo, or just something magical, just to say the least. There's so much to really much be excited about, and overall, this is the best Disney live-action movie yet, and I can't express it enough. I laughed. And this is probably like one of the best things that I've watched in such a long time when it comes down to reboots. And the tagline of this saying, "It's not a reboot, it's a comeback," is the perfect tagline for this. For me, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers was one of the best little cartoon shows that ever happened to be on Disney, and when it was canceled, I was really sad. That, you know, I always feel like there's people who are really much more in the DuckTales or this, and I was more of a Chip 'n Dale fan, and I love this show. I love the mysterious aspect and the vibe of it all, and the way that they're kind of bringing this back, showing that, oh, it's a rundown, you know, Disney. Some of these characters have been, I guess, you know, not have the best career after their shows or movies had premiered, and Chip 'n Dale's one of those, you know, after Rescue Rangers was canceled, where are these characters now? And while in a sense it isn't just a remake of the entire franchise itself, but it is a reboot for this property. It's tackling characters that are very much someone that is very iconic, as well as a cartoon show that I feel like has a cult following around it, but it works. Where it takes place 30 years later after their popular television show ended, the Chipmunks, Chip 'n Dale live very different lives. When a cast member from the original series mysteriously disappears, the pair must reunite to save their friend. And really much diving into the pros from there, first off, the animation was a big surprise for me for how great it looked with the live action, and it very much is reminiscent to Roger Rabbit, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I feel like as time goes on, I wouldn't say this is a classic like Roger Rabbit, but it is something that very much is creative and reinvents the wheel of what these Disney Plus, or just in general, what Disney live-action remakes should be, and what these reboots and remakes should be in general. And for me, starting with how the CGI and the visual effects work, a majority of it does look pretty good. There's two characters in particular that the CGI is a little bit pretty hit or miss, especially towards the back half, which I guess that could equivalent to my cons, but really much enough. Chip and Dale itself, the visual effects on both of them are fabulous. I love the jokes about, of course, animation and how they joke around with it, whether it was the hand-drawn animation, certain things with that, and how certain characters look like from there. Of course, we see that with one of the Chipmunks, as well as how now 3D animation works, and we've seen it in the trailer how one of the Chipmunks talks about that. Hey, yes, I got CGI, I got the plastic surgery to look this way, and it's hilarious to see that. But adding as well, he's not the only character that has gotten this, and they tackle other characters like from the Jungle Book, like from the Lion King. These characters that have already gotten the CGI modification from reboots within the Disneyland era, and I dig that. I love the jokes around that. Film itself even makes jokes towards other properties other than Disney, and even studios that were doing that weird CGI thing where it's like it kind of looks real, it kind of doesn't, it just seemed off in the early 2000s, and all of those jokes absolutely had me laughing out loud. A film that I will absolutely revisit for years to come, for months to come, especially within this year. It'll be one of my little things that I just play in the background and just laugh as I watch. Again, all those little inside jokes, again, if you're more into the movie fanatics and all sorts of things like that, you'll like that. But as well, if you're not, I think even the general going audience will understand that. There are a couple cameos that I'm not going to discuss here because, again, spoilers, that I don't even know how they got away with. But there's one that has a reoccurring thing like 4 or 5 times in here, and I lost it. You see it in the first like 20 minutes. I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of you who love things like this and love the film space are going to lose your crap from that scene. Like, that was perfect. In general, it is a matured humor from that. There's humor enough for the kids to enjoy as well as families, but as well as that humor that is knitted in there for adults. And again, Akiva Schaffer, who is a part of the Lonely Island crew, alongside Andy Samberg, when they were signed up for this, I knew this thing was going to be somewhat special. At least I would hope it would. And then, it said it was only going to be on Disney Plus and not in theaters. And okay, that worried me a little bit because all these Disney Plus original movies haven't been that great. But other than just being the best Disney live-action reboot yet, this is hands down the best Disney Plus original film yet. I can't express it enough that a lot of that goes down to the writing and to the directing. Everyone involved with Lonely Island has always known how to bring creative and unique visions. You look at Palm Springs, something that they did a couple years back, which really much reinvented the wheel on the Groundhog Day thing, and that was so special. Hot Rod, Popstar reinvented something on the mockumentaries itself, and this really much reinvents what creative Disney reboots possibly could be, and this is how they should be done. Yet this one does have that particular element to be a satire onto itself, but the way that it works and the way that it reinvents and takes what had happened before and respects it and builds on top of that to make a more interesting story is something that I very much love, and I cannot, again, express enough for how great the writing was for this film as well as the directing from Akiva Schaffer. I can only imagine that this film probably didn't have the biggest budget, so they really much put everything onto the screen, and it really worked. One thing I think a lot of people are going to be wondering is how are the voices of course, John Mulaney and Andy Samberg as Chip and Dale. Now, both of them are actually really good in here, and they never deterred because they do use at times sometimes the original Chipmunk voice, but for what you were doing in here in the context of the story, it is hilarious. And again, their chemistry works wonders. Of course, the rest of the cast is also fantastic. Keegan-Michael Key, J.K. Simmons, Will Arnett, Eric Bana, and many more surprises, as well as Kiki Lane, who I've loved from Beale Street, and she's really good in here and has a great chemistry, again, with Chip and Dale themselves. That's where it just goes as far as to say that I couldn't stop laughing. This is a hilarious movie that will have you bursting at the seams, as well as being intrigued with what is going on. When you actually dive in and see what happened to their friend, where did they go, and why did that happen to them, it very much is reminiscence to Roger Rabbit, but in a more unique and twisted way than we have seen in the last couple of years. Like, this very much feels like a semi kind of spiritual sequel to the Roger Rabbit film in some way, shape, and form, and I love that. Like, if you were to tell me that, like, oh, this takes place in the same exact world as that film did, I would completely believe you. It just blew my mind with how damn good this movie was. I can't wait to talk spoilers later this week. But other than that, this movie, while it is the best one yet, I do have a couple cons that just held the film back from being literally a masterpiece. And those little things that held it back was one thing, CGI I kind of mentioned already, but I really much, I think they did the best that they could. And the CGI for those characters work for the context, but in general, some of the fight scenes seemed a little bit off with those characters. The other thing I do want to talk about this film is besides Chip and Dale, I felt like some of the other aspects of Rescue Rangers was a little bit missing when it comes to certain characters in there. Now, again, this is more of a Chip and Dale movie, but I do feel like these characters were needed to be in there just a little bit more, as well as certain character development for other characters made it a little bit too obvious for where the mystery was going by the end, but still, it was very fun. Make sure to stay after the credits because there's a bunch of awesome Easter eggs and a really cool mid-credit scene that had me just smiling. Like, if you were born and lived through this era of DuckTales, this Darkwing Duck, and everything you could mention, you're going to really like that end credit scene. Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers is hands down the best Disney live-action reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it. This truly is a comeback for these characters. I absolutely hope all of you guys support this film this weekend because I cannot express enough that I want more of Akiva Schaffer and this crew diving into this world, giving us more mysteries, more fun with the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, especially with where the film ends at. I'm like, okay, this is good. Give me more of Chip and Dale and the Rescue Rangers and their next journey, because again, this truly is the comeback for these characters. I've always loved Chip and Dale, I've always loved the Rescue Rangers, and having this mix of CGI and live action and hand-drawn animation, all those sorts of things, it really works for the context of this. Since it is a satire for reboots and everything going on right now in our society within Hollywood, whatever characters it may be, and certain things that happen within animation, visual effects, and all that, but it plays on it to such a T, and it absolutely is hilarious from top to bottom. From the very first act to the last, you are going to be sitting there bursting in laughs and also just having a blast. It's a great family film with jokes for kids, but also a ton of jokes for adults that will go right over their head till they see this earlier. And again, bravo to Disney for letting them do what they needed to do. I loved this film. And with all that said, I'm going to give Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers an A. One of my favorite films of the year. This will be my comfort movie for this entire year right now. There hasn't been another movie where I can just pop on, and enjoy. This is going to be the first one, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. So thank you so much again for watching. Look out for that video soon. If I've already done it and you're watching this later, I'll post that in the corner. But of course, guys, thank you so much again. You guys are really all the best. Head on over to Sandwich on Films on how to see films early. And of course, until next time, stay classy.